My name is Maya Ellison, and I was 31 years old when my biological mother learned she had been replaced from a wedding program. Not forgotten, not accidentally left off, replaced. She was standing at the back of the vineyard hall in a lavender dress she had not been invited to wear, staring at the folded program in her hand as if the paper had slapped her. Parents of the bride, Arthur and Helen Whitmore. The room was full of white roses, champagne glasses, soft string music, and 200 people who knew exactly who my parents were. Arthur and Helen Whitmore, the retired high school principal and the nurse who had pulled out a chair for me at a Christmas dinner 5 years earlier when my own family told me not to come home. The people who fed me when I was too ashamed to admit I was hungry. The people who learned my coffee order, remembered my birthday, sat through my design presentations, helped me move apartments, and signed the adult adoption papers that made true in court what had already been true in my heart. My mother, Denise Ellison, did not know any of that when she walked into my wedding uninvited. She only knew the woman she had raised to accept crumbs had become someone else's daughter. My father stood beside her, pale and silent. My sister Celeste stood a few steps behind them, one hand on her pregnant stomach, looking around like she had arrived at the wrong life. I watched them from across the reception hall while my husband's hand found mine under the head table. "Do you want me to have security remove them?" Adrian whispered. I looked at the two people who had given me life and then spent 27 years teaching me I was optional. "No," I said. "Let them stay long enough to hear the announcement." The band quieted. The wedding coordinator lifted the microphone. "And now," she said brightly, "please join us in honoring the parents of the bride, Arthur and Helen Whitmore." The room stood. Applause rose like a wave. Arthur took Helen's hand and helped her up from the front table. Helen pressed a tissue under her eye and smiled at me with the same warmth she had shown on the night I cried over Christmas dinner in a restaurant bathroom. At the back of the room, my biological mother went completely still. For 5 years, she had called me dramatic, sensitive, difficult, ungrateful. But in that moment, standing among strangers at her own daughter's wedding, she finally understood something I had stopped trying to explain. A seat at my table was no longer hers by default. It had been earned by the people who showed up when she chose not to. Before I tell you what happened at the wedding, I need to take you back to the phone call that started everything. It was December 22nd, 3 days before Christmas. I was 26 years old, standing in my apartment in Providence, Rhode Island, with 2 grocery bags on the counter and a half-wrapped gift for my father on the floor. The gift was a leather-bound journal because Dad used to say he wanted to write down stories from his childhood. He never did. I kept buying him journals anyway. Hope makes people repeat themselves. My suitcase was open on the bed. My train ticket to New Haven was printed and tucked into the front pocket of my purse. I had taken 2 days off work. I had made cranberry orange bread because my mother once said homemade gifts meant more. My phone rang. "Mom." I answered too quickly. "Hi, Mom. I was just packing. What time do you want me there tomorrow?" There was a pause. Not a warm pause. A managed one. "Maya," she said, "I need you to be mature about something." My chest tightened immediately. In my family, mature meant I was about to be asked to accept something unfair without emotion. What happened? Celeste is exhausted. My sister Celeste was 29, then married, pregnant with her second child, and professionally fragile when attention moved an inch away from her. "She is 7 months pregnant," Mom continued. "The doctor wants her to avoid stress." "What stress?" "You know how things get between you two." I closed my eyes. "Mom, nothing gets between us unless Celeste starts it, and everyone asks me to swallow it." That, Mom said, voice sharpening, is exactly the tone we cannot have this Christmas. I looked at the cranberry bread cooling on the counter. The apartment smelled like orange zest and butter. It smelled like trying. "What are you saying?" Another pause. Then the sentence, "Do not come home this year." I did not speak. The heating pipes knocked in the wall. Someone in the apartment above me laughed. Life rude as ever continued. Mom filled the silence. It is just better for everyone. Celeste wants peace. Your father agrees. We all think a quiet Christmas is best. For everyone, I repeated. Yes, except me, Maya. No, I just want to understand. I already bought my ticket. I took off work. I made Dad's gift. I made bread. And you are telling me not to come because Celeste might feel stressed by my existence. You always make yourself sound like a victim. I stared at the window. Outside, snow had started falling in small, uncertain flakes. Am I invited to Christmas, Mom? You are being dramatic. Answer the question. She exhaled. No, not this year. There it was. Clean, brutal, final. Does Dad know you are calling? He thinks this is best. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because something inside me recognized an old pattern wearing a new sweater. Dad never made decisions when Mom and Celeste wanted something. He simply became the silence they used as permission. Merry Christmas, I said. Maya, do not be like this. But I had already hung up. I sat on the kitchen floor for 40 minutes. Not because I fell, because my legs had decided standing was too ambitious. My family had not surprised me. That was the worst part. The pain came less from shock and more from recognition. A lifetime of small exclusions had finally become one clear sentence. Do not come home. When I was 8, I won a library reading contest. The prize was a certificate and a $10 gift card to a bookstore. I ran into the kitchen waving it. Mom said, "That is wonderful." Then Celeste came in crying because her ballet bun hurt. Mom put my certificate on the counter beside the onion peels and spent 20 minutes redoing Celeste's hair. When I was 13, I had a solo in the spring concert. Dad promised he would come. He missed it because Celeste had a soccer team dinner. When I was 17, I got accepted into a summer design program in Boston. Full scholarship. Mom said it was too far, and Celeste was having a hard year socially, so maybe I should stay home and be supportive. When I graduated college, my family arrived late because Celeste's toddler had a meltdown over socks. They missed my name. Mom said at least we made it for pictures. Pictures. Proof for other people that support had occurred. I built my whole life around trying not to need too much. I became easy, helpful, quiet. I learned to sit at the end of tables, take the smaller portion, say, "It is okay," before anyone apologized. No one noticed because nobody had asked me to become visible. By 26, I was a junior interior designer at a small firm living in a studio apartment where the radiator screamed at midnight and the kitchen drawers stuck when it rained. I was proud of that apartment. It was mine, but on December 22nd, it felt like a waiting room for a life where no one was coming. I called my father. Some part of me still wanted one adult to choose me. He answered after 6 rings. "Hey, kiddo." His voice was soft, guilty. He knew. "Dad, did Mom tell you she uninvited me from Christmas?" A television murmured in the background. "Probably a basketball game. She mentioned there might be a change of plans." A change of plans? "Maya, do you want me there?" Silence. I held the phone so tightly my fingers hurt. "Dad." He sighed. "You know your sister is very emotional right now." "So am I." "That is not the same." The sentence landed quietly. It explained my whole childhood. Celeste's emotions were weather systems. Mine were inconveniences. I swallowed. "Do you want me there?" He took too long. "No," I said before he answered. "That is my answer." "Maya, your mother is trying to keep peace. By removing me, it is one holiday." "It never is." But I did not say that. I looked at the wrapped journal on the floor. Leather cover, blank pages. A gift for a man who had never written himself into my defense. "Okay," I said. "Do not be upset." "I am not upset." And strangely in that moment, I was not. I was empty. The kind of empty that becomes a room you can leave. Christmas Day arrived cold and bright. The kind of New England cold that turns every window into a warning. My building was quiet by mid-morning. Everyone had left for somewhere. Families, friends, obligations. tables where their absence would be noticed. Mine would not. At noon, I made the mistake of opening Instagram. Celeste had posted a photo. There they were. My parents, Celeste, her husband Grant, their 3-year-old son in red pajamas, and a polished Christmas tree behind them. Everyone holding mugs, everyone smiling. The caption read, "So grateful for a peaceful Christmas with the people who matter most." The people who matter most. I zoomed in. Not because I wanted to, because pain sometimes asks for details. There were stockings on the mantel. Mom, Dad, Celeste, Grant, Oliver. Baby girl coming soon. No Maya. Not moved aside. Not hidden. Gone. I closed the app, then reopened it because hope is stupid and wanted to check whether maybe I had missed one. I had not. The cranberry bread sat wrapped in foil on my counter. Dad's journal sat under the tiny tree I had bought from the grocery store. My apartment looked festive in the pathetic way lonely people make things festive for themselves. I thought about staying in bed, eating crackers, watching movies where families learned lessons by the end. But my body stood before my sadness could argue. No, I said out loud to the empty room. If my family had decided I did not belong at Christmas, I was not going to let that decision turn into a locked apartment and a cold dinner. I searched for restaurants open on Christmas. Most were closed. A few hotels had prix-fixe menus that cost more than my electric bill. Then I found the Lantern Room, a small old restaurant near the river. Christmas dinner service. Walk-ins accepted. I changed into a green sweater, brushed my hair, put on lipstick, and took the cranberry bread with me, because I could not bear to leave it behind, like evidence. The Lantern Room was warm the moment I stepped inside. Dark wood, brass lamps, a fireplace near the bar, garlands over the windows. A hostess in a velvet dress looked at me, and then at the single bag in my hand. Just one? The words were not cruel. They still hurt. Yes, she led me to a small table near the hallway to the restrooms. Not bad, not good. A place for someone who had not been expected. I sat. Ordered the Christmas dinner special. Turkey mashed potatoes, roasted carrots, cranberry sauce, a slice of pie. The food arrived beautiful. I tasted none of it. At the table beside me, a family laughed. An older couple, a man and woman in their 40s. 2 teenagers, and a younger man about my age, maybe a little older in a navy sweater, telling a story that made the older man slap the table. They looked comfortable together. Not perfect. Better than perfect. Real. They interrupted each other. Passed roles. Corrected exaggerated details. The teenage girl stole whipped cream from someone's pie and no one acted betrayed. I looked at them and thought, so this is what warmth sounds like. Then I started crying, quietly at first. Then, not quietly enough. I turned toward the wall and pressed my napkin to my face. A chair moved. A woman's voice said, "Sweetheart, are you all right?" I wiped my face too hard. "I am fine, sorry, allergies." The older woman stood beside my table. She had silver hair cut to her chin, kind eyes behind square glasses, and a red cardigan with tiny embroidered snowflakes. "Allergies to turkey are tragic," she said. I laughed because I had no defense against gentleness. She smiled. "I am Helen Whitmore." Maya, no one should cry alone over Christmas turkey. "I am okay." "I believe you are capable of being okay," she said. "That is not the same thing." I stared at her. She looked back without pity. That mattered. Pity makes you feel small. Attention makes you feel real. Helen glanced toward her table. "We have too many rolls, too much pie, and a son who thinks he is funnier than he is. Come sit with us." "Oh, I cannot." "Of course you can." "I do not want to intrude." "You are not intruding. I am inviting you." At her table, the older man lifted his glass. "She does this," he called. "We collect people." The younger man smiled. "Best to surrender early." I looked down at my plate, then at the cranberry bread in the chair beside me. "I brought bread," I said stupidly. Helen's smile softened. "Then you are not a guest. You are a contributor." That sentence broke something open. I picked up the bread and followed her to the table. I did not know it then, but that was the moment my life turned toward home. They made room. Not dramatically. Not with fuss. They simply shifted. The teenage boy grabbed another chair. The younger man moved his coat. Someone handed me a clean plate. The older man introduced himself first. Arthur Whitmore, retired principal, current menace to quiet restaurants. Helen's husband, Helen added, as my proudest title. The man in his 40s was Benjamin, their older son. His wife was Claire. Their kids were Sophie and Max, and the younger man in the navy sweater was Adrian. He designs buildings, Arthur said. I work at an architecture firm, Adrian corrected. Same thing if you ask a retired principal. Adrian looked at me. Please do not ask him about the time he tried to redesign our garage. I improved it, Arthur said. You removed the door for flow. Everyone laughed. I did too, a real laugh. It startled me. Helen cut into the cranberry bread and declared it excellent before anyone else tasted it. Max asked what I did. I am an interior designer. Sophie sat up, like those TV shows where they knock down walls. Sometimes fewer walls are harmed. Adrian smiled. That sounds responsible. It is mostly budgets, measurements, and convincing clients that beige is not a personality. Arthur pointed his fork at me. I knew I liked you. For the first hour, no one asked why I had been alone. They asked normal questions. Where did I live? What kind of spaces did I design? Did I like Providence? What was my favorite Christmas song? I said, Oh, Holy Night. Arthur sang the first line badly. Helen told him to stop damaging the holiday. I laughed so hard I had to put down my fork. At some point I realized I was eating. Actually eating? Warm food. At a table where no one made my hunger feel embarrassing. After dessert, Helen moved into the chair beside me. The others were arguing about whether pie counted as breakfast if eaten before 10. Helen looked at me. Now, she said softly, do you want to tell me who made you feel like you had to eat Christmas dinner alone? There was no pressure in her voice. Only room. I told her. Not everything. Enough. The phone call. Celeste. My father's silence. The Instagram post. The missing stocking. Helen listened without interrupting. When I finished, I expected the usual responses. Maybe they did not mean it. Families are complicated. You only get one mother. Instead, Helen said, people who remove you from the table do not get to criticize how you grieve the empty chair. I looked at her. She covered my hand with hers. I spent 30 years as a pediatric nurse, she said. I have seen children hurt less by accidents than by being made optional. I could not speak. Arthur had gone quiet too. He looked at me over his glasses and said, For the record, young lady, you are welcome at any table of ours. I cried then, not beautifully, not quietly. Helen handed me a napkin and kept her hand on mine. That was Christmas with the Whitmores. A stranger saw me crying beside a plate of turkey and decided the correct response was not pity, it was room. I did not go to their house the next Sunday, or the Sunday after. I wanted to. That was the problem. Wanting things made them dangerous. Helen texted twice. Not too much. Just enough. Hope you are eating real meals. Arthur wants your cranberry bread recipe and claims it is for academic research. No pressure, but Sunday dinner is at 5 if you ever want soup and chaos. I saved every message. Read them more than once. Then on the third Sunday in January, I stood on the Whitmore's porch, holding a second loaf of cranberry bread and feeling ridiculous. Their house was a blue Victorian in Pawtucket with white trim, a wraparound porch, and yellow light in every window. A house that looked like it expected people to come back. Before I knocked, the door opened. Helen stood there in an apron. I told Arthur you would come when the soup was ready. You knew. I hoped. There's a difference between being expected and being pressured. I learned that at the Whitmore house. Sunday dinners became a pattern, then a ritual, then slowly family. Arthur taught me how to make proper coffee in a French press and acted personally wounded when I admitted I owned instant. Helen kept an extra pair of slippers for me by the door. Sophie asked me to help decorate her room and paid me with a drawing of a cat wearing sunglasses. Max challenged me to board games and accused me of cheating only when he lost. Benjamin and Claire became the kind of steady, older couple friends I had never known how to make. And Adrian became safe before he became anything else. We texted about architecture and bad restaurant lighting. He brought me paint samples as jokes. I sent him photos of hotel lobbies with captions like "Crimes Against Lamps." He never pushed, never made me feel watched. He simply showed up in small, consistent ways until I stopped bracing for disappearance. Meanwhile, my biological family continued not noticing my absence. No apology, no Christmas regret, no January check-in. Celeste had her baby girl in February. I found out on Facebook. The caption, "Our family is complete." Complete. I stared at the word for a long time, then closed the app and went to Sunday dinner. Helen had made chicken stew. Arthur had saved me the corner of cornbread. Adrian had fixed the loose handle on my tote bag without making a speech about it. I did not tell them about the post until later. When I did, Helen said completion is not always a compliment. Sometimes it just means no one is looking for what is missing. The Whitmores never told me to forgive. They never told me to cut everyone off either. They did something harder. They let me decide. The first year after Christmas was not a magical transformation. Healing is mostly repetition. You hear kindness once and do not believe it. Hear it 10 times and suspect a trap. Hear it 100 times. And if you are lucky, your body starts arriving before your fear does. I still flinched when my phone rang. I still drafted texts to my mother that I never sent. I still imagined my father walking up to my apartment with the old leather journal and saying he had made a mistake. He did not. On my birthday, my mother sent one text. "Happy birthday. Hope you are well. No love." No question. No mention of Christmas. I replied, "Thank you." Then cried because 2 words can cost more than paragraphs. Arthur called that evening and sang "Happy Birthday" off-key into my voicemail. Helen had a cake at Sunday dinner. Adrian gave me a sketchbook with my name embossed on the cover. Inside the front page, he had written, "For the spaces you have not designed yet." That was the first time I thought I might love him someday. Not because of romance, because he imagined a future for me without asking whether he was in it. 2 years after the Christmas dinner, we became more than friends. Not in a movie way. No sudden kiss in the rain. No dramatic confession. We were in a furniture warehouse arguing about whether a chair was ugly or brave. Adrian said I would like to take you to dinner as a date, not as the person who helps me insult chairs. I said the chairs deserve it. He said they do, but so do we. So we went, slowly, carefully, with many conversations about boundaries, family fear, and what love means when your first definition of it was conditional. He proposed 18 months later at the Lantern Room. The restaurant had renovated badly, and we spent the first 20 minutes critiquing the light fixtures. Then dessert came. On the plate was written in chocolate, "Will you choose me back?" I looked at him. He was holding a ring. My eyes filled before I said yes. Across the room, Helen and Arthur stood up from a booth, cheering before I had even finished nodding. "Subtle," I said through tears. Arthur shrugged. We were hiding behind a fern. Very advanced. I said yes. Of course I said yes. I had been choosing them for years. Wedding planning made one question unavoidable. Parents of the bride. The phrase appeared on forms. Invitation templates, seating charts, ceremony scripts. Every time my chest tightened. Denise and Paul Ellison. Those were my biological parents. But were they parents of the bride? Parents are not just origin. Parents are presence. They had not called when I got promoted, had not met Adrian, had not asked where I spent Christmas, birthdays, Sundays, grief. They knew nothing about the woman getting married. The woman they had raised was a version of me, built for survival. The woman wearing the ring had been raised into herself by people they did not know. One evening, Helen found me at her kitchen table with 3 invitation samples and a headache. "What is wrong?" "I do not know what to put on the invitation." She sat across from me. I slid the sample toward her. Together with their families. Parents of the bride. The families of Maya Ellison and Adrian Whitmore. All of them felt like lies in different fonts. Helen read quietly, then looked up. Do you remember what I told you about adult adoption? I did. She had mentioned it once, after I cried over my birthday text. I thought she meant it as legal trivia. I was wrong. It is real, she said. Consenting adults, court petition, legal parent-child relationship. It can change next of kin inheritance, even birth certificate records in some states. But more than that, it can give language to what already exists. My throat tightened. Helen, she reached for my hand. Arthur and I have considered you ours for a long time. We did not want to ask because we never wanted you to feel claimed. That sentence broke me. My biological family had claimed me only when I made them look good. The Whitmores loved me enough not to claim what I had not offered. Would you? I asked. Helen's eyes filled. Yes. Arthur cried when we told him, then pretended it was allergies caused by legal paperwork. The adult adoption hearing was small. A judge in a beige courtroom. Arthur in his best suit. Helen holding my hand. Adrian behind us, trying not to cry. The judge asked if this was voluntary. I said yes. She asked why we were doing it. I looked at Arthur and Helen, then said because they became my parents before the law knew. The judge signed. Maya Ellison became Maya Whitmore legally, not because I wanted to erase where I came from, because I wanted the record to finally reflect where I belonged. The invitations went out in April. Parents of the bride, Arthur and Helen Whitmore. I stared at that line for a long time when the printed box arrived. Not because it hurt, because it healed in a place language had not reached before. My biological family found out in May. Celeste texted first. Are you seriously getting married and not telling us? I had not heard from her in almost 3 years. I stared at the message. Then another arrived. Mom is crying. Then, you are being cruel. There she was. Celeste, able to fit 3 accusations into 10 words. I did not reply. My mother called 6 times that night. I let each one go to voicemail. The messages became increasingly dramatic. Maya, this is your mother. Call me. Maya, I do not understand what you think you are doing. We are your family. You cannot just replace people. We need to discuss the wedding before this gets embarrassing. Before this gets embarrassing. Not before this hurts. Not before we lose you completely. Embarrassment. Their oldest god. My father left one voicemail. Hey Maya, it is Dad. I guess we heard some news. Call us when you can. No apology. No, I miss you. No, I should have called years ago. Just news. Then 3 weeks before the wedding, my mother appeared at my office. I was in the materials library reviewing upholstery samples when the receptionist called. There is a Denise Ellison here. She says she is your mother. My body went cold. For years I had imagined this. The apology, the tears, the recognition. Reality wore a beige coat and looked irritated. I met her in the conference room. She stood by the window, looking around at the office as if assessing whether my life had become respectable enough to interest her. Maya. Denise. She flinched. Good. Some names are earned. What is this? I hear about a wedding? I am getting married. To Helen's son. To Adrian. Her lips tightened. You did not think your parents deserved to know. You did not think your daughter deserved Christmas. Her face flushed. That again, it was one holiday. No, it was the only honest one. She sat down without being invited. I want an invitation. Number. The word landed cleanly. Her eyes widened. Excuse me, you are not invited. I am your mother. Legally, no. The room went very still. What does that mean? I was adopted by Arthur and Helen Whitmore last year. For a moment, Denise Ellison looked genuinely stunned. Not angry. Not strategic. Stunned. You cannot be adopted. You are an adult. Yes, that is why it required my consent. Her mouth opened. Closed. Then the anger arrived. They manipulated you. Number. They took advantage of you when you were vulnerable. I almost laughed. You mean when you left me alone on Christmas and did not call for 3 years? Her face twisted. I was giving you space. Do not rewrite abandonment as generosity. She stood so fast the chair scraped the floor. "You will regret cutting out your real family." I opened the conference room door. "My real family is helping me with the seating chart." Her eyes filled then. Whether with grief or rage, I did not know. It was no longer my job to translate her emotions. "Goodbye, Denise." She left. I returned to the materials library, locked the door, and shook for 10 minutes. Then I called Helen. She came with soup. Not advice, soup. That is how mothers answer sometimes. The wedding was in September, at a vineyard in the Hudson Valley. I had designed every visual detail myself because interior designers should not be trusted to relax. White roses, olive branches, warm candlelight, long wooden tables, soft linen, tiny brass lamps on the bar because overhead lighting is an enemy. The ceremony took place under an old oak tree. Arthur walked me down the aisle. At the beginning, my steps were shaky. Halfway down, he whispered, "You are not being delivered. You are being accompanied." I almost cried before reaching Adrian. The vows were simple. Adrian promised to build doors, not walls. I promised to stop apologizing for taking up space. Helen cried openly. Arthur pretended the sun was in his eyes, even though we were under a tree. After the ceremony, while guests moved toward cocktail hour, the security coordinator approached me. "Mrs. Whitmore." That took me a second. "Yes. There are 3 people at the front entrance asking for you. Denise and Paul Ellison, and a woman named Celeste." Adrian's hand tightened around mine. "They came." The coordinator nodded. "They say they are your immediate family." I felt the old fear rise. Then stop. Fear depends on doors being locked behind you. Mine were open. "Let them in," I said. Adrian turned toward me. "You do not have to." "I know. That was why I could. But they are not to be seated with family," I added. "Back row during the reception. Security nearby." The coordinator nodded. Adrian studied my face. "Are you sure?" "Yes. I want them to see the difference between being excluded and not belonging." He kissed my forehead. "Okay." They entered during cocktail hour. I watched from the edge of the reception hall. My mother wore lavender. My father wore a gray suit that did not quite fit. Celeste wore a blush maternity dress and the expression of someone prepared to be wronged publicly. No one greeted them because no one knew them. That was the first consequence. At my biological family's table, I had always been known and unseen. At my wedding, they were unknown and finally seeing. They hovered near the guest book. My mother looked at the framed adoption photo placed beside the card box. The picture showed Arthur, Helen, and me outside the courthouse, all 3 of us crying and laughing at once. Under it was a small caption, "Family by choice and by law." My mother picked it up. Her hand trembled. Celeste read it over her shoulder. Her face changed. My father looked away. Then the coordinator called everyone into the hall. Dinner began. I did not look back again until the announcement. The band softened. Our MC Adrian's best friend Jonah stepped to the microphone. Before dinner, Maya and Adrian would like to honor the people who helped bring them to this day. Please welcome the parents of the groom Richard and Helen's Arthur and Helen's dear friends. He stumbled, corrected himself, laughed. The room laughed with him. Then he continued. And most importantly, the parents of the bride Arthur and Helen Whitmore. The room stood. Applause filled the hall. Arthur and Helen rose from the front table. Helen pressed her hand to her heart. Arthur gave a small, embarrassed bow. I looked to the back. My mother was white with shock. Celeste leaned toward her, whispering rapidly. Dad had both hands on the table, staring down. The words had done what years of conversations could not. Parents of the bride. Not Denise. Not Paul. Arthur and Helen. The truth had been printed, announced, applauded. My mother reached me before dinner was served. Of course she did. She crossed the room like embarrassment had given her speed. Celeste followed. Dad trailed behind slower. Adrian stood, but I touched his arm. I have this. Mom stopped in front of me. What have you done? I looked at her. Gotten married. You know what I mean? I usually do. That has been the problem. Her eyes flashed. You humiliated us. You came uninvited. We are your parents. No, I said. You are my biological parents. Celeste made a sharp sound. That is disgusting. I turned to her. Hello, Celeste. Merry Christmas, 3 years late. Her face reddened. I was pregnant. I was alone. Mom cut in. You always do this. You always make everything about that one holiday. No, you made that holiday the clearest example. Dad finally spoke. Maya. His voice was rough. Tired. I looked at him. For a second, I saw the father I had wanted. Then I remembered wanting is not evidence. I am sorry, he said. My mother turned. Paul. He did not look at her. I am sorry, he repeated, eyes on me. I should have called. I should have come to Providence. I should have told your mother no. Yes, I said. His eyes filled. I was a coward. The word sat between us. Long overdue. Celeste crossed her arms. This is ridiculous. You are all acting like Mom committed a crime. She asked you not to come to one Christmas because I needed peace. I looked at my sister. You got peace. I got proof. She blinked. What does that mean? It means that when they chose your comfort over my belonging, I finally stopped trying to audition for a family role you had already filled. That is not fair. No, it was not. She opened her mouth, but no words came. My mother was crying now. Not softly. Not beautifully. Angrily. That woman, she said, pointing toward Helen, is not your mother. Helen had appeared behind me without sound. Arthur beside her. Adrian stood on my other side. My mother saw them and seemed to shrink. Helen spoke first. You are right, she said calmly. I did not give birth to Maya. My mother seized on it. Exactly. Helen continued. But I did answer the phone. I did open the door. I did sit in court and promise to be legally responsible as family. I did show up for dress fittings, birthdays, bad work days, and the morning she almost canceled this wedding because she was afraid happiness might be taken away if she trusted it. My father closed his eyes. Helen's voice stayed even. Motherhood is not proven by biology when presence is missing. My mother stared at her. Arthur stepped forward. He was not a large man. Retired principal posture does not require height. It requires practice. Mrs. Ellison, he said, 5 years ago, your daughter sat alone in a restaurant on Christmas Day because she had been told not to come home. My wife invited her to our table. Since then, we have watched her become a woman who no longer apologizes for needing love. His voice hardened slightly. We did not take your daughter. We kept the chair you left empty. The room had gone quiet around us. My mother looked at the watching guests. This is private, she hissed. No, I said. You came into my wedding reception uninvited and demanded a role you abandoned. Nothing about that is private. Dad wiped his face. Maya, I do not expect forgiveness. That surprised me. I do not deserve it, he said. I know that. For the first time in my life, my father did not ask me to make his guilt easier. I nodded. Thank you for saying that. Mom looked horrified. Celeste looked angry. Dad looked broken. I hope you get better, I told him. I really do. But not at my table today. He nodded. I understand. Mom whispered, I do not. I looked at her. I know. Then I turned to security. Please escort them out. My father went willingly. My mother did not. Celeste muttered that I had become cruel. I did not answer. When they reached the doorway, Dad turned back once. He lifted his hand, not asking. Just goodbye. I held his gaze, then looked away. Arthur's hand settled on my shoulder. Helen's fingers found mine. Adrian kissed my temple. The room began to clap. Not loud at first, then stronger. I did not need applause, but I understood what they were giving me. Witness. For once, people had seen the whole thing and did not ask me to shrink it. After that, the wedding became joyful again. Not because the confrontation had not hurt. It did, but because hurt was no longer allowed to be the center of the room. We ate dinner. We danced. Arthur gave a toast that made everyone laugh and cry in the same paragraph. Helen danced with me to What a wonderful world, because she said mother-daughter dances should not be limited by tradition. Adrian spun me under the string lights until my shoes gave up. At midnight, when the last shuttle left, we stood in the empty hall surrounded by wilted roses and half-burned candles. I looked at the head table. Parents of the bride. Arthur and Helen. The place cards were still there. I slipped one into my purse. Not because I needed proof. Because sometimes joy deserves a record too. The next morning my phone was full. Texts from cousins I had not heard from since college. Some scolding, some curious, some pretending concern. Your mother is devastated. You took things too far. Family should be respected. Adult adoption, is that even legal? I deleted most of them. Then one message from my Aunt Lydia, Dad's older sister. Maya. I heard what happened. I'm sorry I stayed quiet all these years. Your mother made it difficult to challenge her, but that does not excuse me. I am glad someone gave you the family you deserved. I replied, Thank you. I needed to hear that. She wrote back, I know. I should have said it sooner. That at least was honest. Celeste sent a message 3 days later. Mom is inconsolable. Dad is barely speaking. I hope you are happy. I wrote, I am, then blocked her. Not forever, maybe. But for now, peace does not have to be permanent to be valid. 6 months after the wedding, I became pregnant. When I told Helen, she made a sound I had never heard from another human being. Arthur cried openly and blamed pollen in February. Adrian laughed for 10 minutes, then panicked about cribs. We decided not to announce publicly for a while. But news travels through families even when doors are closed. My mother sent an email. No subject line. I heard you are expecting. Whatever has happened, I should be part of my grandchild's life. A child needs their real grandmother. I read it at the kitchen table while Adrian made tea. For years, that email would have opened every old wound. This time I felt sadness, but not confusion. I wrote back, A child needs safe people. Biology is not enough. I hope you work on becoming safe, but access will not be given because of a title. She did not respond. My father sent a separate message. Congratulations. I am happy for you. I know I have no right to ask for anything. I just wanted you to know I am glad you are loved. I stared at that one longer, then replied, Thank you. Not forgiveness. Not invitation. But not nothing. Life after boundaries is not always a slammed door. Sometimes it is a window opened 2 inches with a lock still in place. A year after the wedding, we held Christmas at the Whitmore house. My daughter Lucy was 3 months old, sleeping against my chest in a red knit sweater Helen had made. The house smelled like pine cinnamon roast chicken and baby shampoo. Sophie was home from college. Max had grown 6 inches and still accused everyone of cheating at cards. Benjamin and Claire were arguing about dessert. Arthur was trying to sneak Lucy a taste of whipped cream, and Helen was threatening legal action. Adrian sat beside me on the sofa, one hand on Lucy's back, one hand on mine. At dinner, Helen tapped her glass. I want to make a toast, Arthur groaned. She practiced. I did not. She did. Helen ignored him. 6 years ago, I saw a young woman crying alone at a restaurant table on Christmas Day. I invited her to sit with us because no one should be alone on that day. I did not know she would become our daughter. I did not know she would marry our son. I did not know she would give us Lucy. Her eyes filled. I only knew she needed a chair. She looked at me. Sometimes family begins with something as small as making room. I could barely see through my tears. Arthur lifted his glass. To making room. Everyone repeated it. To making room. Lucy woke and sneezed. The table erupted like she had delivered a speech. That night, after everyone left, I stood in the dining room looking at the chairs. So ordinary. Wood. Cushions. A little scratch near the end, where Max had dropped a fork years ago. For most people, chairs are furniture. For me, they are theology. A chair means someone expected you. A chair means your hunger was considered. A chair means your absence would change the room. My biological family had taught me the pain of an empty chair. The Whitmores taught me the power of pulling one up. If you are listening to this because someone in your family decided you were the easiest person to exclude, I want you to hear me. You are not dramatic for noticing the empty chair. You are not selfish for wanting a stocking with your name on it. You are not too sensitive because repeated rejection finally made you cry. And you do not have to keep showing up to tables where your place depends on someone else's mood. Family is not just who shares your blood. Family is who makes room when you arrive carrying grief in both hands. Family is who says you are not intruding. I am inviting you. Family is who signs papers not because the law creates love, but because love deserves protection. My name is Maya Whitmore now. I was born Maya Ellison. Both names are part of my story. One tells where I started. The other tells where I was chosen. My biological parents are not villains in every chapter. I know that. My mother probably believes she kept peace. My father probably believes silence was safer. Celeste probably still believes pregnancy and stress justified everything. But their beliefs do not get to edit my life anymore. I spent 26 years trying to be small enough to keep. Then one Christmas I was told not to come home. So I went somewhere else. I found a restaurant. A woman named Helen found me. A family made room. And slowly, chair by chair, dinner by dinner, signature by signature, I became someone who no longer begs for a place at a table that was never built with me in mind. If you are alone this holiday, I hope someone sees you. If no one does, I hope you see yourself. Get up! Eat somewhere warm. Answer the kind invitation. Build your own table if you must. And when you do leave one extra chair, you never know who might need it.